Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Interoperability in Action webinar series number 4, Blockchain in Healthcare. A couple of quick housekeeping notes. Today, we are going to be audio recording this webinar. For the attendees, your lines will be muted. If you have any questions that you want to convey to our presenters, please use the chat or Q&A feature. I'll be doing some polling today, so please be on the lookout for some polls later on in the presentation. Thank you very much, and we're going to start off today with Steve Posnack. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Steve.
Always good to do a check. Thanks, everyone, for joining. We appreciate you attending and taking some of your day out to watch this series that we call Interoperability in Action webinar series. This one's focused on blockchain and healthcare. I first want to thank the entire contract team that helped facilitate all this, and especially the facilitators, as you can see up there on the agenda, from ONC and our colleagues at the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation. We've been interested in blockchain for several years now. First activities, which you can find on the healthit.gov website through our Tech Lab pages, include Ideation Challenge, which many of you, I'm sure, listening in have probably participated in, yielded over 70 white papers around blockchain and healthcare. We have done a co-sponsorship of a workshop with NIST. It happened about a year and a half ago, and I'm glad to see that we've got one of our colleagues from there give a presentation today. We also sponsor Codeathon with some of our other colleagues, the Digital Chamber of Commerce and other stakeholders. And we've really been, following along and engaging with many of you and having conversations about the usefulness and application of blockchain in healthcare. So I want to thank everyone for joining again. Very much interested in all the open dialogue that we're going to have. Very much encouraged as well that, and I think a treat for you today, that we've got a number of different federal agency speakers. We'll be covering interest and intersection in blockchain. And without further ado, I will get out of your way and get on with the show. Thank you very much.
Of the Secretary for Planning and Evaluation. And today we're going to have our next speaker, who's Rashida Dorsey. She's the Division Director, at Data Policy at ASPE, which is the shorthand for the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation. She'll briefly talk about the work her office does, so I'm going to hand it over to her.
First, let me thank everyone for attending this webinar. Very excited for ASPE to partner with ONC to present opportunity for everyone, including myself, to learn about how HHS may start incorporating blockchain technology across the department. As Director of the Data Policy Division in the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation, called ASPE, advises the Secretary on policy development in health, disability, human services, data and science, and provides and analyses on economic policy. The Data Division serves HHS policymakers by providing relevant, coordinating, and analysis of a broad range of data and statistical policy matters arising across the department. It works to ensure that the data and information are available to support HHS's policy and programmatic needs. We do this by providing better insights into issues such as data access, data sharing, data linkage, and data quality from both top-down and bottom-up views, and I'll provide expertise in areas such as survey and administrative data, privacy policy, data standards. We also have folks who work in health IT. Directed by the Department of Health and Human Services are essential to support the department carrying out its mission of advancing the health and well-being of all Americans. A departmental report on data strategy noted it would be difficult to conceive of an HHS program, mission, or policy initiative in which data and information do not play a central role. And recently, data, specifically leveraging the power of data, was identified as a strategic shift area under the department's Redesign HHS initiative. As the next several hours, there is the potential for blockchain technology to help improve data policy and programmatic needs such as help improve the ease and trust of how the department's data is managed and shared between individuals both in and outside of the department. Thank you again for participating in this webinar. I look forward to learning with all of you from the presenters and rich discussion.
Thank you, Gita. Our speaker's up next. Our speaker is Justin Herman. He's the GSA Emerging Citizen Technology Lead, and he'll talk about the opportunities available for those who want to share, learn, and participate in advancing U.S. government blockchain initiatives. Justin?
All right, well, thank you so much again for everyone who's logged in here today. This is obviously a project that HHS took one amongst agencies, and we've all been watching so closely. And so I kind of wish halfway that we weren't talking during this event so the team could just sit back and be taking notes and listen to everybody on it. So thank you again. What I wanted to do is, rather than give sort of like the standard visionary keynote about the future of things, we want to talk about right now what you can do if you're a startup, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a small business, if you're a leader of industry, if you're a federal agency, state or local, if you are anybody who cares and wants to know more about participate in U.S. government blockchain programs and initiatives, we're going to walk you through that, all the different options, what we see as opportunities for you to participate today, and of course open it up so that you can then know and give recommendations basically on where we should go, where we should be focusing, and also how you can participate and how to contribute to this inevitable advancement of emerging technologies in government. So specifically, in a little breakdown of what our office does at GSA. So figure our office lives just to support other government agencies in their efforts. And so we specifically focus on when enough government agencies come together and identify a technology that doesn't really have a roadmap forward as far as compliant and effective evaluation for federal programs, but agencies know they got a use case. They know that they want to start an investment in it. And so then what we do is we launch a government-wide program in partnerships with agencies across government in order to start collectively building that roadmap together. Ironically, through consensus, a lot of it, which ties in well to blockchain. So, of course, we focus on artificial intelligence, mixed reality, social tech. The world changed the day that we obviously introduced blockchain, because just a year ago, it was something that you might have read about a little bit, and often the questions were, was the federal government even thinking about blockchain? And now, honestly, it dictates a lot of our time, because the amount of initial investment, of test and evaluation, of partnerships building, of lessons to be learned, I think in ways are far outstripping the perception of where the U.S. federal government is. And that's why it's critical that we have these webinars and we're sharing results, because when the federal government is doing this level of test and investment and experimentation and opening partnerships, but if people don't know that they exist and people aren't thinking that these opportunities exist, it really hurts our ability to modernize public services the way that the American people both need and deserve. And so when we talk about these interagency communities, we're dealing with an established network of over 2,000 federal technologists, but actually it's not just technologists, because when we look at blockchain, for instance, we know that it's more than just the technology. We've got to look at the organizational culture. We've got to look at the business cases. Our interagency networks who are looking into this have everything from, we have the lawyers, we have contracting specialists, we have data stewards, we have program managers who aren't technologists at all, but they're the ones who are passionate and on the ground and know the mission better than anybody else. And if these people come together to work to basically figure out what is currently a lot of times the unknown, that is both greatly inspiring, but also it's a responsibility for us to get it right and to really open things up and partner with private sector, academic researchers in new ways before, to make sure that we're not falling for some of the old barriers that you hear about in the government bureaucracy, and we truly actualize the advancement of emerging technologies and their benefits for public services. specifically do we do? And this work is tied into what all of you can do and participate in. So we work and we support and coordinate best we can emerging tech, including blockchain, especially blockchain, among more than 320 unique federal, state, and local agencies. Now, of course, federal government is our bread and butter, but if you're looking at blockchain, I mean, you don't have to look far between the state of Illinois or New York City and different areas that are easily also taking a lead in the test and evaluation for public services. Two, and this goes to a lot of people here on this webinar today, we need to, want to, and can partner and collaborate with private sector leaders. We meet up with startups, small businesses, anything that we can do, demystify the field of blockchain and emerging technologies in general, but also make it easier for all of you to be able to work with the government, not just for some intangible future state, but for things that we can do today, right now, for IT modernization and solutions, or look into the near future. You know, a lot of people don't know this, again, because they just don't expect, but there is a robust global public sector blockchain community between World Bank, Asian Development Bank, United Nations, of course the United States government, and our work with academic researchers at MIT, Stanford, Harvard, anybody who actually comes to the table, we're open to working with them. And so what we have is, and it sometimes surprises people, is an incredibly robust community that we are so glad that HHS for so long has been taking a natural leadership role in this space among federal agencies, and hopefully, and of course, will continue to do so. But it's not just about chasing the tail. It's not just like we read in a publication that blockchain was going to be the new thing. Therefore, let's rub the magical IT modernization genie lamp, and out comes blockchain to solve all our problems. What it really starts with is during the test and evaluation is, what are those use cases? What are those business cases that we can get smarter on as public services? So it's not just knowing when to say yes. It's knowing when to say no or not yet. So we're smarter customers, consumers, and partners within emerging technologies like blockchain. But one of the things is, because we went through those use cases, we knew that there was a robust offering from U.S. Public Services. So some of the ways just identified by federal agencies themselves, and this is in no particular order or level of what we can say is most important or most effective, but agencies are thinking about this for financial management, procurement, supply chain management, of course, smart contracts, government issued credentials, workforce data, appropriated funds, the list goes on. And you, I, and everybody knows not all of these will pan out, or maybe some of these things could be better suited by using pre-existing technologies. However, this technology is new, it's in the space, people are using it, and it does have the potential to unlock challenges that we could not solve before. And so we owe it to people, not just, so an agency to be able to look at blockchain, it's not just about buying blockchain. It's about understanding the processes, understanding the approaches. So even if you're not ready for blockchain today, or blockchain is not ready for you, which is often the case as well, we're smart on it. And we're looking at all the tools in our tool shed, and ultimately, if an agency is able to solve a problem that they weren't able to solve before, however they do it, that is a great win for us. I had all these, and it's not just posting up use cases. You're going to hear from Jose Arrieta later, who is over here at GSA, and now, of course, is at HHS, where seemingly all great things go. And so we put our money where our mouths are, and Jose helped lead the effort in order to pilot blockchain in the contract bidding system. And a pilot that went well, and I'm sure you'll hear a lot about. But again, we're not just at the ideation phase of this. There are many there are pilots underway, there are pilots that are closed out, there's some implementation. It's diverse, it's scattered in ways that you might not always know, and it makes it hard then to translate that for people to know when and how best they can participate. But we're going to walk you through that right now. So it's around this time, of course, that McKinsey & Co. put out a report saying that really what the U.S. government needed going forward was a national roadmap to provide clear guidance for agencies on blockchain technology and to be able to work with best practices, building capabilities, et cetera. This is what we have done together. And this was not just one agency, and this was not just one leader. This was a community that HHS, of course, helps lead, but is diverse and robust across mission areas, budget sizes. The one thing that all ties people together is a dedication to making sure that if there are new tools at the table like blockchain, we are getting smart on it, and we are finding out what the applicability is today, near future, and tomorrow for blockchain technology to overcome those challenges. So where you can all start, of course, when looking at how you can participate in these interagency programs and communities is go to emerging.digital.gov, which is the Emerging Citizen Technology Atlas. Not the best name in the world for a program, but that's fine. It's a complex field, of course. But go to emerging.digital.gov. It's the program that I lead. But again, we only exist to service and help other federal agencies. So when we go to the Atlas, because part of it is people continuously came to us and would say, what's going on? Is people really focusing on this? Did HHS really do a competition on this? And a lot of times it could be hard finding information or opportunities online because of the newness of these opportunities. So that's why we built its open source. It's not always pretty to look at, but it's functional. And again, because we knew we had to open this up if we were truly going to better partner with the private sector and people outside of government, as well as corralling and helping and supporting people within government. So the type of things that you can find out today on U.S. government blockchain initiatives. One, you can go on that atlas, emerging.digital.gov, and find blockchain programs in action. Now, I'm going to do a disclaimer right now. When we first put up this information, and you could find vignettes of different programs and actions across government, this is a small snapshot, because we put up placeholder content just to let people know what was going on in the federal government, and with the idea that agencies would continue to add to it. But just having the placeholder content led to an overwhelming amount of response and requests, because it was just more than people realized were going on. So you could check out, and hopefully after this webinar, ONC will go in and update their vignette with where their program is right now. And again, so you could see that snapshot across government. Two, we talked about those potential use cases before. You go into the Atlas, and every time we have done like a federal blockchain forum, you can not only see what were all the participating federal agencies, but what are the ideas they submitted. And I'll tell you again, in a disclaimer, a lot of them aren't and shouldn't pan out, because that's the whole point. We're in the creative process right now. We're finding out, we're testing, we're evaluating, and we're developing that roadmap forward right now. All ideas are on the table, all options are welcome, and that's part of what makes this such an exciting time right now, because it's truly a time of very focused experimentation, but with an ultimate outcome to, again, measurably improve public services. If you'd like to get into the minutiae of things, we even open up our monthly interagency action meetings with action items. I know this looks kind of boring to you right now, but if you want to know month by month what is the government-wide community talking about in blockchain and what are the goals we're setting for ourselves on a monthly basis, you can go, and every single month we're posting our meeting notes even online. So anybody, whether you're state, local, federal, a business, an academic researcher, a policymaker, you can see what we see. There is no hidden wall. There is no walled garden. We truly want to, from the start, open this to be able to reduce duplication in efforts, to be able to spur competition, and ultimately improve the outcomes and get this right, and to get emerging technologies together right in partnership with the private sector. Now, new and ambitious things that we have just for this quarter. Now that we've got all those agencies, now that we've got the use cases, we've got the support, we've got the connections. They say in the Ghostbusters movies, we got the tools, we got the talent. So what do we want to do with it together with you? So one of the things that we talked about, even just the placeholder content on programs, in order to continue to provide that monthly snapshot of how programs are evolving throughout government in blockchain, we're starting a new thing called the New Tech 10. It's going to be a 10-question data call just for federal managers. That's every month they can share what are their new pilots, what maybe are some mission needs they have, and we're going to then put that on the Emerging Tech Atlas. So again, anyone can start seeing a month snapshot of the development of all these programs across the vast expanse of the federal bureaucracy. Because I'll tell you, in doing these programs, there's two tyrannies we often have to deal with. One is the tyranny of technology itself. Is because where do you find? Is it on a website? Is it on social media? GitHub? You know the program's there, maybe you want to participate, but you've got to find how do you access it best. This is why we're creating this one-stop shop and these little snapshots every month for you to have that. Two, of course, is the bureaucracy of government itself is a tyranny. Oftentimes, the programs you want to know about or the opportunities that are sitting there are coming from an agency or a sub-agency or a commission that you don't know exists. Because it's not people's jobs to know our bureaucracy, it's our job to make it accessible and open to you as possible. So help us in that effort. And we also have a suite of new initiatives that we're working on. It's first, a new venture capital advisory group, which is being led by the DHS Innovation. It's actually called VICE, so check it out. They got the coolest name in town, I think. But again, it's to work directly with the venture capital community to identify what these upcoming trends are and new technologies, obviously in blockchain, because it is hard. People are used to working in 1 year, even 2-year cycles of learning about new technologies. We can't even wait 3 months to be able to confer and move forward on something. The fields are moving this fast. That's why, I mean, blockchain is such a great opportunity, not just to gear ourselves in public services to be able to react quickly and to be able to ingress things faster. It's something that we're trying to create a better government technology itself and better models in order to do it. And so really looking at the Venture Capital Advisory Group, especially if you're in that field, we're going to have more information. Two, of course, academic research. We need to be able to work with the leading research facilities in the United States better, and it shouldn't just be based on whose email address do you have or who do you know in a particular agency. If you want to be able to learn and research what's going on in the federal government, you should have access to the entire vast and rich diversity of programs and people in order to complete your research. And we are going to be helping with that. Of course, we need more training and education. Not on the hard technology side, which of course we need, but also for non-technical people, for program managers, for contracting officers, for legal officers, for that full suite of stakeholders, because it's not just the tech, it's the culture, it's the organization, it's the processes that are being changed, and we need everyone from data stewards to program managers to crypto investors to know exactly where they fall, what their roles are, and how we can work best together. Now, you will say, okay, how do I get started? Because we have two ways that you can access this. We have a group specifically just for people with .gov and .mil addresses, and also there is a way for the public, whether you're a business, an entrepreneur, an academic researcher, you can subscribe to these programs and you're going to get clued into it, and then you get to hear from people like Debbie Bucci and these fantastic leaders as much as you want. And you just go to gsa.gov. At the bottom of the screen, it says Emerging Citizen Technology. You're going to find ways in which to subscribe. And again, this isn't just a DSA thing. We just exist to service and help other agencies. And so we're providing a little bit of the conduit for that, but the richness, value add is going to be meeting and working with anyone from the post office and the Smithsonian to HHS and the intelligence community, right down the line of the vast richness of mission areas and focuses of U.S. public services. And I would be really amiss, considering this is about a blockchain competition that happened, also in our organization, and probably one of the best people you're going to meet in any day is Tammy White behind challenge.gov, which helps support prizes and competitions. And I'll tell you, the space of emerging technologies and blockchain is so open for opportunities right now. And if you're interested in following suit, and you should be, go to challenge.gov, check it out, reach out to us, and I'm going to connect you with the challenge.gov team. And they're going to be more than happy to help and support and look at what are different ways either your organization or can participate in a prize or competition for blockchain. Because I'm telling you, you're going to see a heck of a lot more of them coming out soon, thanks to the leadership of HHS on this. So that's really it. I know I just downloaded a lot of what we're up to right now, what are ways to participate, but there's something that we're oft fond of saying, which is, may we live another 1,000 years and never do another talk or panel about the intangible future of tomorrow, what we darn well should be delivering today for the American people. And so that's what we say is, what can we build together on this? There's no excuses. There is no barriers. We are opening up in ways that we haven't before in order to have frank test evaluation and advancement when appropriate for blockchain. And so whether you're interested in just the public service aspect, whether you're interested in the technology, there are paths for you to work with the federal government on this together. And we invite you to. So please reach out. And again, once more, I would just love to thank HHS for their leadership in this space and more, because emerging technologies, it's very difficult to find a mission area that isn't so critical to people's hearts and minds in daily life than improving health programs. And so it's a natural fit for this, but also it's one that we're so glad that is not taken for granted. And so thank you, HHS, for having us to be able to share these opportunities, and thank you for all you do.
As you could hear, and it was very evident, Justin's an enthusiastic advocate for advancing U.S. government understanding and use of blockchain technology. I'd like to go ahead and repeat the URL for his website. It is a great site if you want to get up to speed quickly on what's going on in this space. Again, it was emerging.digital.gov. Thanks again, Justin. If you're joining, this is a webinar on blockchain and healthcare sponsored by the Office of National Coordinator for Health IT and presented with the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation. Next up, we are going to have a presenter from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Yega is with NIST for short. He will discuss the recent release of a draft NIST report on blockchain technology, which I read a little bit myself. It looks very good. And so the work he's doing at NIST related to blockchain. Dylan?
Hi, thank you for having me. Like I said, I'm a computer scientist with NIST and the Computer Security Division, and I am the project leader, principal investigator of blockchain technology within our division. So just a bit about NIST and blockchain technology is that we have been looking at it a lot recently. And many researchers from many different backgrounds, a lot of computer scientists, cryptographers, and mathematicians who are very much interested in this technology. So it's very important for us to continue to evaluate it and to look at it. So did that advance the slide? Like was said, I'm going to talk about draft NISTer. It's draft NISTer 8202, and it's a block technology overview. I'm going to briefly touch on the feedback that was given to me so far, and then talk about what I'm calling the NIST internal blockchain workbench. That's the research area that I'm currently focusing on, and then some of the standardization work that we are doing at NIST with other standard development organizations, and then just briefly touch on future work that we are planning. So we released on the 24th of January, Drafter 8202. It's about 60 pages. It's a fairly short read. And it's a high-level overview of blockchain technology in plain, simple terms as I could possibly run. It's not quite as short and succinct as the NIST cloud definition, which I believe is 3 pages total, but I tried. So provide an overview of the underlying cryptographic technologies found in the majority of blockchain systems, and try to explain them that a project manager or CEO of a company can look at it and say, okay, so we need this technology. Can we use this technology? And that's who we were targeting. We weren't targeting the computer scientists and the people who would be developing their business and whatnot, who are asking them the questions. Over essentially the mechanics of some blockchain technologies and provide a general overview of how they work. We will also touch on a couple of more in-depth topics, such as varying different consensus mechanisms. We can go into every single one possible because more and more every day, and so we would have had a much longer paper with a lot less technical content. We talk about update technology via soft and hard forks. We talk contracts, and we get into some categorizations of blockchain technology, as well as considerations for use. It's a continuing to expand section as we get more and more questions from people asking us about it, and we're continuing to develop that section. And then we touch on some of the more known blockchains out there, your cryptocurrencies and smart contract platforms, as well as some private blockchain platforms as well. So overall, the feedback for this has been good. I've got a response, a lot of comments, a lot of very technical, detailed comments, and we are adjusting the paper accordingly in sections. Some sections have been completely rewritten. Some have seen augmentations. Some have seen additional references added. So if you are interested, you can go in paper and read it and submit feedback, because we are still taking feedback until the 23rd, so that's next Friday. So it is also likely to go out for a second comment period afterwards, because we have received substantial feedback on various different parts of the paper. So the project that I'm working on mostly at NIST is, like I said, called the Internal Blockchain Workbench. It's essentially a privatized network here at NIST, where we take off-the-shelf blockchain software and funnily break them so that they can't connect to their main block networks, and then perform experiments on them. And from their networks, just so that it's a protect ourselves so nobody can come back later and say, oh, you're mining Bitcoin, and that's, you know, against XYZ policy. It's just there for research. None of the cryptocurrencies are live cryptocurrencies or anything, but it gives our researchers a test bed that's set up for them to experiment without having to learn the ins and outs of every single blockchain they may want to test and experiment on. Set up with a lot of development tools and network analysis software so that they can dive and essentially look at their research project that they want to do and get good results from it. There's a couple proposed projects that are currently ongoing projects, such as we have people looking who are looking at identity and identity management and what that means with a blockchain. Could use blockchain for those particular use cases, and if you can, what aspects of the blockchain, what kind of blockchain would you need for those sort of applications, or what they're likely to do is they're telling me is probably not the best idea to use it for identity management, but use it as some sort of data storage in identity management system. We have some who are very much interested in the under cryptographic modules within existing blockchains, because we've got a program here at NIST, the CMVP, the Cryptographic Module Validation Program, which looks at implementations of cryptographic modules and essentially says, yes, this passes, or yes, this fails. And we want to look at the underlying crypto in blockchains to see if, yes, those pass, no, those don't pass. In regards to what's out there already, what's been validated, we're probably not going to get into a validation process for blockchains, but we want to see it and to make sure that the crypto is strongly implemented and implemented correctly. We also have a couple of people who are very strong in testing of software who are going to be looking at combinatorial testing methods for smart contracts, because to write these distributed applications, you need good, strong testing for that, and they want to see if they can apply combinatorial testing methods to them. And the workbench is continuing to be developed. It started developed last year and is going to be continued to be developed this year. We've just ordered a bunch more hardware for it. So that's going to be expanding our off blockchain. We initially started with 2 blockchains, a Bitcoin-like blockchain and an Ethereum-based blockchain. But we're going to continue to expand out into different cryptocurrencies and other blockchain platforms. And we're also looking to develop just a controller program so that the researchers can turn them on and off. And at the end of this project, we'll have some suite of software that we can put out for individuals or other organizations to stand up their own workbench that's very similar to the one that we have. So that's one of the output goals. This is working very so in a lot of the standard development organizations. We've been participating in the ISO Technical Committee 307 on block distributed ledger technologies, as well as the U.S. Mirror Committee in Insights, and that was founded last year, April 2017, and has had 3 meetings. We're having a 3rd meeting in May, and we continue to advance technology standards in realms of terminology, reference architectures, as well as some guidance on privacy, security, and interoperability in the future. We're also participating in X9. That's not a field that I'm currently participating in, but people here at NIST are. And the recently started blockchain initiative from the IEEE is something that we'll be getting into soon. And so some of our work here at NIST is we're going to continue to develop documentation, high-level guidance. I don't think we're going to be touching on standardization because we're doing that through the very standard development bodies. We're going to work on the workbench and then participate in the standard bodies, as I said. And that, I believe, done.
I want to ask you, you said that you were taking feedback on the blockchain draft report. Is that on your website? Where can people see that?
So yeah, we have a landing page for it. I don't know the exact URL off the top of my head, but when you get to draft email address that you can then comment. So I believe it's just I'll pull it up here. It would be NIST 202 -comments at NIST.gov is where you can share feedback to. For some reason, it's not showing up.
Is the report is though the website that your draft report is on?
It would be at cse.nist.gov. It's a long URL, and I can put that in chat.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a question from the audience when you're ready?
Sure.
I'm going to go ahead and ask it. It's this is asking, will the NIST workbench be available to the general public?
That is something that we have been discussing internally, and we would have to figure out all of the details of what that would mean of us putting out something that general purpose data be posted to. So that is something that we have discussed, and it's something that I have to figure exactly what we would need to do that. But I'd like to put out the resources for setting up and figuring the workbench. Each one of the blockchains that we have been testing so far, there's a development of repeatable installation and configuration script to do that, to the point where I usually run it and I get a cup of coffee and come back and it's set up by the time I'm back. So we would like to release those to people so that they can test it on their own. If we do get the capabilities of hosting it at NIST for the public, then that would be great as well. But I'd have to investigate how we would do that. And I just posted in chat to everybody is the landing page, which has some of the information of the NISTer as well as the contact email address for comments.
Excellent. So I had another quick question for you, which you may or may not respond to, but there's a lot of people who are saying you should put AI, personally identifiable information on the blockchain because of quantum computers will be commercially available in 10 years or so. Do you have any response to that, or do you want to respond to that?
I have responded to that in the past. My feelings on the matter is if it's something that cannot be revoked, you probably don't want to post it anywhere that's public, even if it is encrypted, because encryption systems encryption is only as good as the technology to break it is bad. As technology gets better, the ability to crack encrypted data becomes easier. There can also be flaws found in cryptographic algorithms to essentially have a way to circumvent some of the strengths in them. So I would say probably don't put PII on a publicly accessible blockchain. Maybe proofs of PII on the blockchain instead, and have your data, secured securely elsewhere. But it's all on how much risk you're willing to take. That would be my personal opinion matter.
Also, I always like to hear from folks in blockchain what their views are on that. I have another question from the audience. This question: what is the NIST position on a statement that the blockchain is immutable? I think it kind of goes with the cryptography stuff, but you can try to.
Sure. So the strength of the immutability of a blockchain is in the fact that each one of the blocks are chained to the previous one. So if you've got a high hash rate power on your blockchain, you're generating blocks at a consistent interval, and you put something in the blockchain, when immediately published, there is a small bit of tangibility in that the next block this block could be replaced by a longer chain, and then that data would not be in the longest, quote-unquote, longest chain, and therefore that is not absolutely immutable, but it should eventually be included back in the chain at a later point. So block immutability is there for the latest block, but as you add more and more to it, the data becomes harder and harder to change. So eventually it will become an immutable, but not the absolute latest one per se. So I would say generally yes, that data would be immutable, but there's still a little bit of wiggle room as stuff is being posted to it. Sir?
Yeah, I appreciate that. We have another another question from, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, Ellen, this is Avinash from ONC. Hey, quick question. And I think in the media I've heard recently of thefts on the Bitcoins. I think there was recently a news in Japan that some Bitcoin-based company, Coinbase, I think, lost a boatload of Bitcoins of their customers. And it got somehow hacked. Question is again, do you guys have some idea of what potentially could cause? Is it the technology which is kind of a flaw that's resulting in some of these hacks or heists that we see on the media, or it's more of human factors kind of colluding with blockchain technology that's kind of resulting in these losses? I'm curious. I mean, I don't know if you guys have not analyzed, investigated, or feel it's beyond the scope of the work you guys have done. That's fine. But I was just curious on seeing and knowing whether the technology is safe and it's just the way it's applied kind of results in these leaks, or there are some gaps in the technology that supports blockchain that also could be potentially vulnerable. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So from all of the things I have seen, I have not done an investigation myself, but from everything that I have seen and read and heard from and looking at the technology myself, is most of these hacks are not hacks to the blockchain system itself. The block systems are usually implementing very well-known cryptography, hash algorithms, digital signature algorithms. Most of them are using NIST-directed standards in those areas as well. So the underlying cryptography in those systems are good. It does happen to be a human issue. And essentially, with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, it's shifting the paradigm. You are no longer going to a third party and saying, okay, you hold on my money. You become your own banker, is how I've heard it best likened to. So you're responsible for understanding where all your money is, where it came from, every transaction you've done. That's all on you. And what a lot of people have been doing is saying that's too much responsibility, and I'm going to get to a third party, which is these exchanges which are being hacked. And so they're taking their security, their private keys and whatnot for all of their Bitcoin accounts, and saying, here, you hold on to these for me. I hope what you're doing security-wise, because if you don't, I'm going to lose all my money. And saying that not know what they're doing, they might have overlooked something. There might be a flaw in one of the systems they're using that has a zero-day exploit. Something happens, and these exchanges are essentially being stripped of all their private keys and all of their coins siphoned out that way. So it's taking a centralized system like Bitcoin and making it re-centralized by all these people's private keys hosted at an exchange. So it's not that the blockchains are insecure, it's that people are doing insecure practices with them.
That's helpful. Thank you. And maybe can I ask a quick follow-up? We have time for a follow-up.
Yeah. Sure.
Maybe a quick question. And again, I was just as I was reading through the media and seeing Bitcoins being hacked, and a hacker does use that Bitcoin. Is it by just the whole structure of the technology where blockchains get added in, new chains get added in as new transactions get put on? Does it, in a way, again, help crime solvers figure out who hacked the Bitcoins of that user? So, for example, if the hacker then used that Bitcoin by necessarily because of the distributed ledger system, the use of it gets tracked on the blockchain. Does that help in prevent or catching the thief, or completely anonymous?
Well, all transactions within the Bitcoin blockchain are transparent. That's one of the benefits of it. It says essentially you get a full record of all transactions that have ever happened, so you can know the state of the system at any given point without somebody having to tell you. So if you have all your money stolen, all your Bitcoin stolen, and you see that they were transferred to an account and then transferred to another account and then transferred to another account, you can follow that every step of the way. And what you can do is say, oh, it was taken from me. I know exactly who has it now, because no association intrinsic to the blockchain that says this person owns this address. So that's for 10, 20, 30 times. And would you know exactly who had it, if it was the same person, if it was multiple people, even if you were to track it to the point where you saw that somebody transferred it to a fiat currency through an exchange or whatnot, you wouldn't necessarily know that that was the person who stolen the funds, because somebody could have bought something with Bitcoin and transferred that over, and you would see that transfer went to that person. And so they transferred it to a fiat currency. You know, if you have the cops show up and arrest them, it might not necessarily be that person. So you can sell the transfer of funds, but you can't connect it to the real people without. It means that I wouldn't even begin to understand how us would connect people that way. But it happened. They've caught some people through finding an address reuse, which is something a lot of people try to avoid. They try to have a unique address per transaction just to have more degrees of anonymity to it. So, but it's intrinsic to the blockchain system itself.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I have another audience question. Is there willing to take another one?
Okay.
How do you envision multiple agencies conducting business transactions on a blockchain? Do you see challenges in re-engineering business processes that require cross-agency data?
That's difficult for me to answer, because it would depend on exactly what the data was. Most blockchains right now store very small amounts of data per transaction, and I don't know if you guys have gotten a lot of government emails, but they're usually very big and verbose. And so a custom system would have to be engineered for that. I don't think you'd be using Bitcoin for it. You'd probably have some one of the enterprise blockchain platforms to do such a thing. But it'd definitely be possible to set some sort of data sharing storage capability up through use of a blockchain system. But what I ask is, would blockchain system provide you benefits that are better than existing systems? And that's something that everybody who's looking at, should we do a blockchain? Should we use a blockchain? What they should be asking themselves is, what would this get us that we don't currently have? So would it provide better cross-agency data sharing? It might. We would have to look at the individual use cases for that. Is that okay? Did I fully?
We didn't answer, but I'm sure anybody else did. I just wanted to.
A quick summation of it would be, it would depend on the use case and whether or not it has more benefit than existing systems in place. It could be possible, yes, but you would have to look at it from that basis.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at any other questions from the audience. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So government planning on accepting cryptocurrency as a payment solution. I heard this question before. A lot of people, obviously because Bitcoin is the blockchain that is most well known, everybody assumes there will be tokens or cryptocurrency or something used. What do you, in response to that, do you think that happen, or are they going to do it without tokens, without cryptocurrencies, and how would they do that?
I'm sure what the rest of the government's plan are in regards to adopting and using cryptocurrencies. I can't really speak to that.
No, we're bombarding you with questions, so that's fine. Don't feel like you apologize if something we ask you is outside the purview of what you're speaking on. Okay, there is another question that came up. What is your opinion about the so-called editable blockchain, for example, chameleon hash. Do you know about that? I don't.
I've spoken to several of cryptographers here at NIST about it, and for the most part, they did talk about it. No, it is a way for you to essentially replace a bit of data without breaking the hash chain, and so it could be useful. I'm not sure because one of the reasons why you want a blockchain is for the immutability. So if you would like mutable data, you would probably want to look at a different solution and trying to change the way a blockchain works to be more like a traditional database or another data storage mechanism, transaction framework. So I have any opinion on them, say. I don't have a lot of exposure to them outside of some of the white papers and stuff that I've looked at before. So.
Okay, we appreciate you letting us know, your opinion, Dylan. I know you know a lot about blockchain, so it's always helpful to hear from somebody who's actually familiar, that has used it, experimented with it. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and take a break unless you have anything you would like to say.
I'll just thank you very much for letting me speak.
Have you? Everybody should read the NIST draft report and get in any kind of feedback by February 23rd. Is that right, Dylan?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Everybody, we're going to go ahead and take a break until 2 p.m. when we will continue the webinar where we have two panels coming up. On Blockchain and Healthcare, sponsored by the Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT and co-presented with the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation. After will be presentations from the 4 finalists of ONC's Health Data Provenance Challenge. To tell you more about the challenge and to introduce the presenters is Ali Masahi, who is a Health IT Specialist at ONC.
I'm Victoria. ONC kicked off Phase 1 of our Health Data Provenance Challenge on April 6, 2017, where participants proposed solutions to real-world obstacles for provenance and clinical care. We reached a total of 19 submissions and ended up with 4 finalists. Of 4, 3 proposed solutions utilizing blockchain technology. The winners will be announced on February 21st, and today's finalists will present their proposed solutions to you. And first up, we have Rain Live Oak Technology, and I'll tell you a little bit about themselves and their solution.
A HIE and telemedicine network, and we have worked on a data provenance solution that's very applicable to blockchain and to the broader health IT community. Yami Tyndall, our technology designer and network manager, will be giving the presentation. So, Yami, are you on? I'm on yet. Connectivity problems. Waiting for Yami to go through the slide presentation. Let me give you some additional background. Rain Live works on telemedicine projects funded by USDA. We could have a telemedicine project in the South Pacific linking the Mariana Islands with the mainland for consultations and American Samoa also. And we have about 350 doctors in that, and they are now taking part in use of the blockchain tool that we'll be presenting to you as effective data provenance resource for distant telemedical activities, which has proven some interesting case situations. Ami is online. I was just told that he needs to be unmuted.
He logged as a panelist or a presenter? Because he's a specific presenter.
See him in the upper presenter group. He may be in the MD group.
You're going to have to give me a minute to find him then. Okay.
Have the presenter login.
Okay. So that's
Additionally, while we're waiting for Yami, we have applied the Data Provenance Toolkit to a very interesting ONC-sponsored project with California Emergency Medical Services, linking health information exchanges within the state to EMS services during emergencies, which we actually were able to test this fall because of the fires and flooding in California. And this is beginning to, just on a beginning to provide a test demonstration of the integration of the data provenance toolkit that we've developed into a broader spectrum of the health IT environment, which goes from ER through HIE networks into your emergency services and first responder environments where you've got immediate access and control over data provenance. That also is another fascinating use case that we've had over the past 6 months. Yeah.
For that confusion, I must have lost you.
Okay, very good. Thank you all for listening to my longer descriptions. Now, Yami will give you the walkthrough on our slide.
Okay, the software engineer for Rain Live Oak, so I've handled the development as part of the data provenance project. And so, you have the slides. So what I want to do was develop a data provenance toolkit, a portable software library that we and other groups could use, other IT organizations could use to create and validate provenance records in standards. That would be, the records are portable so they could be exchanged via HIE or between HRs and be legible by any given system. Do slides up? I lost them on my side.
yeah, to present right, but if you want, I can just change them for you. I want the second slide.
Oh yeah, please go ahead and go to the second slide.
Second slide.
So the toolkit can generate provenance records that can be stored in any repository type. It's not tied into a specific database or backend or anything like that. It can output them according to different data specifications. So it's an ideal companion to blockchain projects like the other 3 finalists. And what we're hoping to see is projects could use the toolkit to create the provenance that can then be stored in blockchain. It can also then consume a key function of the toolkit is also the consumption and validation of provenance to enable interoperability. And we want to make sure it didn't move in a proprietary direction so that it can consume and validate and get feedback on provenance even if it wasn't generated by the toolkit itself, so from any source. So by putting it with a blockchain repository or multiple repositories, the toolkit can both provide provenance records and signatures to be stored that way and consume the provenance records that are stored in the blockchain. A full inflow of data validation between the toolkit and chain. And specifications for provenance allow a mix and match of different storage and exchange methods. So you store the provenance in a blockchain, in a standard repository, in a file repository. And as other participants are aware of blockchain, there are different methods for how you can actually move the data around using these standardized provenance specifications. Provenance Toolkit acts as the plugin for host systems, allowing that system services to call the toolkit and perform Provenance actions at every stage of processing. A weight software library they can drop into existing systems and used as a transparent system component behind the scenes, so the user doesn't even have to have any technical awareness of the provenance, but the user interface can leverage that toolkit to give meaningful information on the provenance to the end user. With Blockchain, the toolkit acts as an interface between user-facing services, like a physician or patient portal, and the storage layer, such as the backend database or the blockchain itself. The toolkit processes the provenance retrieved from the blockchain and consumes the user input, such as when a doctor adds a record, updates a patient's medical record, consumes that input, and structures it to be stored as a portable provenance document. The study enables health information systems to integrate provenance using the toolkit for data creation and validation, blockchain for storage and exchange, with minimal development investment and fee burden. While real goal has been to be able to create tools that existing established systems can use to add provenance without tolling the existing workflow. Slide. So we're in for the future of blockchain and provenance. Technology has the potential to make provenance more reliable and accessible across the health information industry. The databases, whether public or private, improve liquidity and transportability of data, so it can be a really valuable tool moving forward to finally get data out of the silos that have so fenced-in information for decades. The carried by such a resilient blockchain-based data platform must also be strongly reliable, very operable, and have real long-term usefulness. That's one of the advantages we envision for provenance is been a history of patients' records over the years, so you can really look back through time via provenance and see how each step in updated record occurred. Our Provenance Toolkit gives information systems the ability to rapidly integrate provenance, maintain standards compliance to ensure records are portable and readable, so that they're in a format that can be moved easily without data, and that they can be consumed by any system, regardless of the technology vendor behind it. Slide, please. And these try to really communicate to information systems and vendors who are interested in provenance is they really can be much more than just metadata. Provenance is documents beyond standard metadata they already have. In provenance, data on authorship, context, participants, all combined with verifiable cryptographic signatures to give documents an actionable history. And that's what I was talking about before. This provenance metal that over time, so you more easily walk back through the history of the patient's care and better understand each individual step rather than just having one monolithic blob of current status of the information. But provenance is part of the document narrative rather than just raw metadata. Clinicians and patients gain a more holistic understanding of a given event that the record represents. Clinicians informed by provenance can deliver better results, prioritizing the patient's needs, the context of past treatments, and decisions on the most accurate data possible, like giving information on where it came from, who involved in generating it, and even the individual pieces of hardware involved. All right, please. So portal standards-based provenance moves, lives, and works with medical records to deliver better care and build a rich history of encounters and treatments. Paired with a resilient distributed technology like blockchain, we can make health information grow faster, do more, and better for patients, physicians, and communities by providing provenance across the full spectrum of care. In my presentation, if there are any questions, I'll be glad to address them. And if you have time, there's also the video we produced for the POP challenge that I'd like to play for everyone to see, to give a more less abstract presentation on what exactly it is we've been doing with this toolkit. think it's 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Am I going to show the video, or do you want me to run the video that from the link in the email?
So if you could open the links, that would be perfect. Thank you.
All right.
I'm sure it doesn't well with WebEx, so it's easier if you share it. Is it possible to have the audio? There is a audio voiceover on this. You guys can show the video audio.
The record is correct. We can make rich, secure provenance records to store and exchange and high quality data exchange between donors, clinicians. We can update our records as necessary with correct permissions. For example, selecting to edit the resource, we're looking at the provenance resource here. We will go over provenance, new provenance, and we'll create a new record with current information. There's the source for that new record that's created, and below you see the provenance record with signatures and certificates. Important to remember that this toolkit begins generating and verifying provenance with less than 20 lines of code in the host server. This is an example of the provenance code and the output record. Creates, updates, and verifies provenance with no seamless integration. It's a full range of rich provenance metadata available via a simple API. Allows the user to track and audit the history of records from document integrity. And it's a toolkit that delivers the ability to quickly generate and verify provenance using abstracted interfaces to support diverse specifications. For additional information, go to www.liveoaktech.net or send an email to rain.org.
All right, thank you so much. We appreciate it. All right, and up next we have Emerald Bye. You got here? Tom there. Not sure if there's anything muted on your side, Tom.
I'm talking.
hear you now.
Oh,
Got you now.
am I sharing my screen?
I think, yeah, if Jennifer could give you, I believe, rights if you
Whoa, what happened here? You can, hello?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. You see this slide here? I have it up, that's why it's a little confusing. Okay, so this slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
We slides. Can you go up to share and say share your screen? So
It's already shared. So.
let's open, make your screen a little bit larger.
If you make slides larger, then I think that'll help everyone, or whatever we're trying to present.
I'm not sure what you. You guys see this slide?
Yeah, in a slideshow mode.
So I'm trying to. So you got here, right?
Yeah, just very small.
I can't see what I'm sharing, so that's kind of.
Is your screen, Tom?
Yeah.
Oh, you should be able to see your screen.
Let me try sharing. So I don't know what.
But you can't.
Right. I don't know what you guys see.
What I see your slide, it says using the public blockchain.
Yeah. Okay. So see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll just can you?
Yeah.
Okay. You make out the text. And, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was trying to be quick and simple. So I'm a startup. It's called Refine. We're looking to decentralize the personal health record. We strongly believe that the future of healthcare will revolve around the person, this patient-centric healthcare. And so, blockchain, we kind of said that we're stop doing everything the traditional way, and we're going to investigate how the blockchain works. And so when you're talking about data provenance, it's really hard not to think of blockchain. Kind of the really first core use cases for blockchain. For this challenge, we wanted to demonstrate how you can have patient-generated health data that it'll get more adoption in the healthcare setting. I wanted to say about provenance. So provenance means some sort of exchange, right? If you exchanging data within an organization, a hospital, for example, isn't really as crucial. It's only when exchanging data from party to another party, simple party exchange, that's when provenance
really could play. And you're talking about health data, the exchange of health data, some sort of consent from the person whom that health data is being shared. So for us, doing the provenance, we wanted to do something that revolves around the person. And also another thing about provenance is that there are degrees of provenance. There's local, national, and global. And this is kind of where you have to really be careful of what blockchain is being for provenance, because smaller private blockchain doesn't really protect provenance as well as a public blockchain like Ethereum. So for we decided to go with the provenance, and that's the Ethereum public blockchain. In our solution, we wanted to show that you can use blockchain to provenance, to protect provenance, and also it's a cost-effective way to exchange health data. And so here, demo. We have two different interfaces, one for the consumer-facing and one for the health stakeholders to receive the data. This is the consumer-facing health passport web application. So step, you see the authentication. And this is something completely new. This is sort of hybrid login, bridge the blockchain world with the centralized world, where you use username and password, and you have to authenticate to the server. Identity, we're actually using MetaMask. I have to log in to my MetaMask before I can kind of connect. But this is, I'm posting a secret. Oh, what happens when you demo? Using blockchain to post to the blockchain, and I then verify in the back end. I already logged in here, but that should work. I'm not sure what's going on there. So once you're here, you can edit your profile just like any regular web application. And this solution is crucial. We were able to utilize our cloud server for normal data saving and utilize the blockchain whenever there is transfer. So take the example of a profile. If you come in and you get a profile and you have to update it many times, you don't have to store that on the blockchain. Something that cloud server can store temporarily. Okay, so after you file, with a little more here, you can go and request some data from Fitbit. I want to kind of demystify some of this, how the blockchain works. Here you can see I have some data from November 2017, and I'll go ahead as to the blockchain. So having a solution, I'm able to store the authentication token to Fitbit, so that I can seamlessly and constantly request data to be added onto the blockchain. It'll take a couple of minutes to get added. Okay, so you can because so the occurs in the blockchain is the latency. latency. The data, your transaction, the transaction will be here. So time to share this data the registry. And here's kind of where the health stakeholder interface. So before your data, you kind of need to know who is receiving the data. Have a bunch of profiles here, you know, insurance, medical colleges, pharmaceuticals, and so you have to, so we built one for the health data. You can receive health data, you have to come and create a profile, and we have to approve that profile to validate that you are who you are. And then, let's see, the profile. And within this profile, you have the ability to make and validate yourself as your contact and what your entity, your organization is about. Once you do that, you're able to show your to receive data. So here, and you can see, you can you can simply click a switch to which health data you want, and this permission is saved onto the blockchain. And once you can come here to the dashboard and leave health data if you choose to. And let's go ahead and click on this. And so this data is coming directly from the blockchain. This is hash of the data, and so you know that this has not altered in 50 years from now. You want it to verify. Here's the transaction of the transaction, and you see. So this is of the Fitbit data, and you see some data here. You can put whatever you want. But you can audit this and certain that this change in any way. So we, for the solution, not only did we solve provenance, we also kind of worked on governance because you know, data change is sort of it requires effect multiple parties to come together. So you could, in exchange, you couldn't just have the, you know, you couldn't just have the best way to store the data. You got to have a way to kind of prove which party and how you govern sharing of that data. That's kind of it for the demo. I'll rest of the time for questions. If you guys wanted to play with this, it's available at mrfi.com/help, and instructions and direction will be there.
One for the next presenter here, but if you could put up your contact information so that we can reach out to you directly with any questions, and you guys can have some further as well. So you can post your email, either put it up there and then or post it in chat as well. Thanks again. And we have one up health.
Hey guys, this is Ricky. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, look Ricky, thank you.
Yep. Let me just present. Sorry. So we're OneUp Health. We are basically building a platform for developers, providers, and patients to access their clinical data across health systems and sensors in minutes via patient-mediated data exchange. And this totally transforms the way that health data is shared previously, because most of those integrations are business to business, and this is using a patient-mediated approach. So we have four main pieces of OneUp Health's platform. One is the FHIR API, and for those of you who are not familiar with FHIR, it's a new HL7 API that allows full exchange of atomic data access of medical data. We have a user permissions API, which allows you to create users and providers and manage their groups programmatically. We have servers and health system integrations with many hospitals and wearable devices, and I'll show you some of those in a bit. And open data access for providers and medical codes like NDCs and ICDs. So for the provenance challenge, what we proposed was, and what we built, is a FHIR provenance plus Ethereum smart contracts tracking platform. And what this does is it uses FHIR to store data, provenance, and audit events, and it uses a sidechain on Ethereum to store a hash of that resource, and then allow you to verify that hash using smart contracts. So workflow, someone using our platform, whether it's a patient, provider, or developer, would be to add a new piece of medical information. And that would be transformed into a FHIR-based resource, or it may have originally been a FHIR-based resource. Then we create a cryptographic hash of that resource and store that hash on a public blockchain on Ethereum. We don't store the actual data, the PHI, because we do believe that in the future there may be methods of decrypting information on the blockchain, so we only store a hash of the resource, so it's nearly impossible to figure out what actually that represents unless you have raw resource to begin with. And then create a FHIR provenance resource along with an audit event to track, was this created, deleted, and update, things like that, and store this hash in the FHIR provenance so that you can say in the future you can look up this new resource that you got, check provenance, and verify that this hash equals that sitting in the blockchain. Or alternatively, the resource that you have, and hash that and verify that against the public blockchain. So this is what we built for the provenance challenge. So our project plan involved a few things. One was, the first piece was data aggregation for multiple health systems, integrating our provider-facing app with Cerner's HR at Boston, bringing that whole Ethereum blockchain integration, and then in partnerships with health systems and app developers, and then gathering intelligence, and then obviously making this platform available to everyone in the world. So to date, we're connected to 96 health systems, and this is all in production. It spans organizations including Epic, Cerner, and Allscripts, or vendors including Epic, Cerner, and Allscripts, and it also includes hospitals like Stanford, Honor Health, Hopkins, Cedars-Sinai, Cornell, Hospital for Special Surgery, a bunch more. And these are, again, live in production. As a patient, you can go into OneUp Health and connect from any of these health systems, or as a developer, you can make these health systems available to patients on your apps. So next month, what we did was we produced a provider application that can run within the power chart for Cerner, and we collaborated with Boston Children's Hospital on this. And I can show you, I'll show you in a little bit what this actually looks like in a demo. The biggest new contribution to what we did was making this data, this provenance hash, available on Ethereum's blockchain. And in order, so our platform is making like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of requests a day, and that becomes very costly on Ethereum's main chain. So we had to develop a side chain, otherwise we'd be paying like thousands of dollars a day just to run this. So we've open sourced this, and it's on GitHub via this link below. You can search for OneUp Health GitHub. But I'll show you a little demo of how this works. So this is a provenance test tool that we created. If you enter a resource, a FHIR resource here, then you can verify this resource against the blockchain. And it's currently showing up as false because this resource has not been posted to the blockchain. So what you can do is you can send this transaction, which is going to store this hash along with this URL, and then that gives you the transaction information from the chain. And then when you verify the resource, you can see that it does exist. So resource with this content hashed like this exists on the blockchain at this URL. And using this as process as the basis for verifying resources in our provider and patient apps. So when you go to our provider app, you can see a timeline of patients, which is scrollable and zoomable, and you can like hover over things to show what's important. And when you scroll down, you can also dive into specific pieces of information. So this is lab value, for example. You can see that it comes from Smart Health IT because this is dummy data. And what this is doing in the back end is issuing that smart contract to OneUp Health's blockchain to verify whether or not the hash of this resource exists, and you can see that it does exist. So go back to our presentation. That's on GitHub. You can play with it whenever you want. What we did was we wanted to pilot with BCH, and we really had thought about piloting using something with their cardiology department or their ortho department, and what we ended up doing is actually going in with their ACO because they feel like the ACO can benefit more from external health system data. You now have the incentives for value-based care with ACOs. I just showed you the demo of the provider app, and I can dive into a little bit deeper. But one of the things that BCH wanted was to be able to look at all your patients organized by risk score. So again, we built that to make this provenance data useful, and you can see every patient like this. You can dive into them and again view the provenance information. The pilot with BCH is set to start in April because that's when their ACO opens up, and it'll have about 30,000 patients. And we've been collaborating with their MDs and care team members to build the provider application. So in December, we actually released our platform to the world. And what that means is that any app developer can create an app that automatically tracks provenance, connects to these 96 health systems, and stores that cryptographic hash of the resource in the sidechain that we have on Ethereum. And that really requires very little work from the developer to get all that benefit. This app that I'm showing you on the right was built by one of the companies that is top of OneUp Health, and it took them less than 2 weeks to build their app, including everything from that and all the integrations with OneUp Health. It takes less than 100 lines of code to be able to do all this, including the connections from 96 health systems. So we've been in prod for 2 months, and developers have made about 10,000 queries against FHIR resources. They're covering 16 different resource types, and we've seen that provenance-specific requests, so developers looking for where the source of an piece of information came from are about 8% of the total query volume. We also have a patient app that allows patients to connect to these health systems. So far, 300 patients have signed up. We reached out and spoke to some of these patients. They're not very interested, or they're not well aware of the blockchain verification, which is fine, but they are very interested in the provenance, which you can see up here. Cerner is connected for this piece of the Epic for this one, all scripts for this one. So whenever a patient hovers over any of this, it'll show them where the source of that information came from. We believe that the One-Up Health approach is pretty scalable. It's built on FHIR and blockchain to basically future-proof for any sort of data standards that we might have in the near term. Unlimited types of applications can be built on this, as we've seen, like 16 app developers and companies have already started to build on One-Up Health. It's very low cost. It costs less than a cent per query. Technology, both on the blockchain and FHIR side, is horizontally scalable. And we have companies that have spent less than an hour to integrate with One-Up Health, and they can already pull in patient data from any of these 96 health systems that we're connected to. And again, we have the provider and patient-facing apps. Since we're kind of running short on time, I'll just scroll through the patient-facing app for you. So you can connect health systems. You can add provider here and search for any of these health systems. Here's a Cerner system. And as a patient, you can view your timeline with all your medical information at the top, information coming in from these various systems, Cerner, Epic, all scripts like that. Do you guys have any questions?
Good, Jennifer.
Tell him I didn't know if we were taking questions yet.
Yeah, same thing. We'll just leave your contact information up there, and if you want to post your email in the chat so we can, any participants with questions can reach out to you directly. We had to do that. We're just going to keep the presentation on. So. Oh. I guess we finished?
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you so much. And our next one, we have Hyper eHealth. And I see your screen here now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Perfect. So, good day. I am Namazi from Tyranny Spirit, is a company based in Austria, in Europe. And I'm here to report how the Hyper eHealth team, which is a team composed by people from US and UK, achieved the problem of the provenance, as all the other presented before me. The use case. So we met providing provenance records for clinic and private data, generated data. Let's start with clinic data. So we have these settings. John, the patient, is feeling a bit tired, and he goes to his GP, Anna. Anna is visiting John and decides to go for further investigation because he thinks to some cardio-related diseases. So she asks for two lab analyses from two different laboratories, Lab 1 and Lab 2. Then it goes there, is at the laboratories for the visits, and then goes to Annie. And watching the results, Annie decides to John that for John it's good to go to visit a specialist, a cardiologist, Bob, which is working central hospital. So it's the electronic record for the patient, and makes it available for the doctor, for both the cardiologist. So John, cardiologist, and the cardiologist queries for the EHR of John and the repository. And what we see is that this is a document, a CDA actually in this case, an electronic health record containing data from Lab 1 and Lab 2, but this one rendered in a document created by Annie. Annie data from the documents made available from the laboratories and put in a document for John that Bob is reading. So this is how we tackle the problem. We have the idea that entity which we are searching provenance can be something which relates to a document or to part of the documents, because document can be created on demand by the system. And of course, Bob needs to know that, because he can then provide some clinical decisions based on provenance of the data, because at the end of the day, provenance is the foundation of data quality. So we do it. And so basically, we leverage on the existing experience from existing projects. So at the beginning, the idea has been to use the DS4P, the data segmentation for privacy, which a project aiming at defining some rules to how to segment the CDA for granular access control. And then for each part of entities, for each entities for which we search provenance, we express the provenance data following the prof, the standard from the W3C, which defines data model for provenance. Then this prof using a private blockchain, and we use Hyperledger for that fabric. Then we query, such as from mobile devices, so from web portals using IHE and FIRE query, MXD and QEDM belongs to the FIRE provenance resource. So ours is basically based on standards, because we want to provide a system which seamlessly integrates with existing deployment. We don't want to have anything at the end, so we just want to have the small pieces that gives provenance data to already existing systems. So for this reason, we based the entire solution on W3C standards, like, as I already mentioned, PROV, SG, digital signature, and I will explain in a moment why. HE, which is the providing the building blocks for the well-known Sequoia and the Nationwide Healthcare Information Network, NWE, in USA, but in Europe we all speak the same language. And HL core, CDA and FIRE. So as already based our system on CA, XTS, MHD approach. So these acronyms they represent IHE profiles, defining how a document shared amongst healthcare enterprises and create and pushed and queries by mobile devices. So the use case is that we have an XTS source, like someone who creates health data, clinical data in this case, that pushes this newly created data to an XTS repository. And here we actually plugged the health service bus, the product from the arm of the K team, the HyperHealth team, which is incepting this standard transaction from IHE and evaluate the provenance record. I will tell in a moment how, and then stores in the blockchain. The blockchain is just a big dictionary, a hash map, that's value store basically. Each keys can have collisions. So the provenance of the document, we wait the prof document of the document and its section in case of a CDA, and then we store it, as already mentioned, in the blockchain. Whenever we have a collision, then we record the history of the collisions by sending the value stored for that key, and this is the root of our provenance trees. We will see in a moment what does they mean. When we query, actually, it's this way around. So basically, we have an XTS consumer which queries for the metadata related to the document, and we intercept the query. When for the subsequent retrieve, we read the document from the repository, we hash it, and we canonicalize it, and we hash it, and we do the block's particular data. And we leave recursively to all the pointers to the other provenance document in order to have the full chain, the full tree of the provenance entity for which the information. We use Fabric. So how we do it? So as I mentioned, we define the entity, and entities are driven by the way how information is signed. So we have the standard named ADIS, which ADIS, PDIS, and XADIS defining the signature for PDF, XML, and anything else that can be represented as a CMS data structure, for instance, DICOM information, and of course we need to provide canonicalization of the data. We can simply get an JSON structure and hash it, and hoping to retrieve it back, because the many implementation, for instance, can break the canonicalization of XML by adding spaces, for instance, or the same way is true for JSON as well, or thing that can break the canonicalization. So for this reason, before submitting the data on the blockchain, we do canonicalization. That, as I said, for PDF, anything else except XML, a signature over the full data with 3 signature, and we get the digest value. And for an we do the XML digital signature, therefore we canonicalize it. We throw away the signature, and we get the digest value. And we do the operation when we query. So when searching for provenance, in order to have data stored in a way that we can retrieve back later. So then we'll seize the provenance in the blockchain, in the Hyperledger, by using the client SDK for Fabric. We decorate the object. So, for instance, in the case of CDA, we decorate each section with information for the provenance information, which are in format of a FHIR provenance query and in the prof data for further application to ontologies. Imagine search. Okay. In a search environment, probably the researchers, they want to provide further, they may want further infer to the provenance of each data that they retrieve from us. Basically, the blockchain, performance is related to how we decided to go for Hyperledger Fabric for a private blockchain, because the public chains are really inefficient, but they have to be inefficient because there is lack of trust amongst the miners. So the miners, they all have the incentive to cheat the others, and a stake is not yet a quick solution for the scalability of the blockchain. While permission blockchain like Hyperledger or Solvroot, for instance, the consensus algorithm is not a problem, because is deployed in a highly trusted environment. So this is a screenshot of what if we have time, I think we can do it live. So this is a rendered using the style sheet of the CDA, and here we have a screenshot of a section of a CDA, and so basically we see 2 provenance records. Why 2? As I said before, because one belongs to the document as a whole, and the second belongs to the section. So in the case of Annie creating the CDA for Bob, Bob will see a provenance record for the document created by Annie, and each one refers to a provenance record created by Lab 1. And well, hopefully in this picture here. So basically, we have several sections and other header data like the preamble of the CDA. So what we do is that we sign the CDA using XML, the digital signature. Therefore, having exclusive canonicalization, we throw away the signature, we create the provenance document, and then we push this provenance document into the Hyperledger fabric. As of being stated by the first speaker from NIST to the call, we do clearly and obviously anything in the blockchain which can be a private health data of, in any case, all the optimization algorithm possible and all the encryption algorithm possible, they are valid in this case, but the blockchain is immutable for probably they will not be secure enough in times from now. So what in the blockchain actually is the hash and the corresponding proof data model. But then, as I said before, the blockchain is that we think about is a private blockchain, so it is installed where the trust is something that you can achieve from following ISO 27K. But this is something that we pay because this probably does not scale well. Okay, so because you cannot trust by adding new peers or miners, peers in the jargon of Hyperledger, you cannot extend trust to the newly created miners easily and to at the same time to guarantee the same level of trust amongst all the others. So we're thinking about to have separate islands of blockchain following this model, and then to exploit well-known IHC cross-community queries to a cross-community provenance query, CCPQ, basically going across the border of the blockchain to querying from blockchain using the same technology which is existing and it is well deployed for instance, in the US or in Europe since years. Another solution is that cooperation that started already with Intel to explore the COCO framework, which is a component created by Intel and Microsoft, leveraging Hyperledger's sawtooth, and the trust is made on the definition of the Intel hardware, so it's really fast actually, and it's general services. So meaning that the facilities, they can access the blockchain in the cloud, in use of Azure in this case, by doing the queries. Therefore, this would not this would ease the work of the IT personnel in the hospital, because they don't have to maintain a trust amongst the peers, or we don't have any centralized body which is running the blockchain where the people can query. So having actually another button. And then who we are, as I said, it's people around from USA, Austria, and UK. Actually ends my my presentation. If I think I have a minute more, and I want to show you live the screenshot that I see live. So basically, I submitted here 2 documents from this. What I do is that I do a query. This query is intercepted by the health service bus, query blockchain, and turn the information. Sorry, it's in Italian. Some parts are in Italian because I have the Italian language on my screen. Which has for each one the provenance information, the record for where the document has been created. So how we have the accountability of such a data? So basically, what we store as a provenance, we weighted carefully the FHIR provenance resource, and we thought to extend extend it by defining information about the agent, who did what, from where, why. And in this case, we have the information related to the agent, which is the principal out of the application assertion defined mandatorily by the NWN. Okay. Then name and organization, which are still of the assertion of information assertion information. The location, which is something which is defined by the XDS source. So who is the XDS source and where is it located? Created this information. The XDS source, as an example, it can be anything. So anything that is contacting the Hyperledger client, a mobile device, for instance, for fitness data. Then we have location name, where, of course, the location name, meant unique ID, which is an information to uniquely store, to uniquely find a document either in a CR and clinical data repository or an XDS repository, when it's been generated and how. So there they reflect the data model defined by Prof, which is shown here. So we have an entity, an activity, and an agent. So an entity is the thing for which we are searching provenance for. The activity is who created the entity, by whom the agent. And relationship, they form the on top for which the researcher can, or anyone else can do the query. I just shown to you is deployed in in several sites in Europe and the USA, but the France part is not yet part of the SUR, because we plan to test it to the next connectathon that will be in 2 months now, to prove interoperability with other IHE installations. And once with interoperability, it will be part of the solution from the Hyper-EL team. Having I concluded my presentation.
Wonderful that. I want to thank Ali for moderating this, and also thank you so much to the Provenance Challenge finalists. It was really interesting to see these presentations. I know you're going to get a lot of questions from folks. Ask people that can you also put your contact information up so people can contact you or directly if they have any questions? That would be great. We are running ahead of schedule, so we're going to take a 20-minute break, about a 20-minute break, I guess. Actually, let me make that 15 minutes. If you could be back on, the audience back on at 3:20 p.m. We're going to have some poll questions for you. We want to get some audience participation, some questions, so we're going to have, and you can give us some feedback. This session is going to be the Health and Human Services Roundtable, which will start at 3:30, but again, we will have some questions for the audience at 3:20, so I hope you'll join again back then. Thanks so much. And if you're just joining, this is a webinar on blockchain and healthcare sponsored by the Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT and co-presented with the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation. We're going to start our panel for Health and Human Services, or the roundtable rather, at 3:30, and right now we're going to put up some questions for the audience. So we'd love to get some feedback from all of you. We do have the first poll question up, which is, personal health information may be placed on a blockchain if it is encrypted, true or false? So please put a choice. results are already up there. Looks mostly false, but quite a few answered true. So maybe later in this round table. Question is up. What entity controls the data on a blockchain, true or false? Hosting, overwhelmingly, most people answered true to that question. Poll question coming up. Okay, then is participants in a blockchain have a common need to share but do not need to explicitly trust each other, true or false? Like 96 people answered true and 30 people answered false on that one. And there's one local question before we go into our roundtable. This is a question to the data. Under data should be health data should be under the primary control of A, physicians and providers, B, hospitals and health delivery systems, C, insurance companies and payers, D, government and public health agencies, E, patients and individuals. response that most people overwhelmingly thought patients and individuals should be the owners of their health data. All right, with that, we are going to go into our final session of the day. Will be a roundtable discussion with officials from offices within the Department of Health and Human Services, and we're going to hear their thoughts on blockchain and healthcare and some of the work they're doing. I hand it over now to Debbie Bucci, who's an IT architect in the Office of Standards and Technology at ONC, who will be moderating the discussion. Debbie?
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you to so many participants that have hung around to the end, and hopefully it's the last but not least session. So we originally had 4 members, but because of the flu, we have 2 great presenters for us that they will first have some time to talk. And the questions, I think, will make this more interactive. And please, if you have any questions, put them into the Q&A window, and we'll queue them up for them to answer. Sean and Jose, are you both online?
Yeah, Jose.
Okay. We will start with you first. Jose, is that okay?
So, well, first of all, guys, it's great to get to know you, I guess, virtually. I am not a health expert, but I have actually done a blockchain implementation. We the pilot, it functionally works, and what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through kind of we did that, and then I'm going to apply it in a very general way to healthcare. And I don't know everything about healthcare, but I just want to paint a picture for everyone on the phone so that you guys can maybe develop an understanding of what I mean. So, you know, what blockchain is, I specifically said that I wanted to automate a business process, and I wanted to operate at the data layer. And what I was able to do is actually firewall off a business process that I was responsible for, to design an optimal path around how that business process would execute most efficiently, but wasn't currently executing efficiently. And the process that I'm talking about was operating on 22 different IT systems. That actually information went into or came out of at any point in time. It interfaced with 5,500 suppliers. They were companies that we did business with. We actually did financial analysis off those companies. We negotiated with those companies. We awarded rates to those companies. You know, we awarded pricing to those companies, and then we facilitated business activities to those companies. So when you think about implementing blockchain, you think about a network of nodes that all share the same data, but that's really not the way you want to go about implementing it. The way you want to go about implementing it is taking one business process that you control end to end, figuring out what the optimal path of that business process is and what data you need to actually travel along that optimal path. And I want to start by building 2 nodes that allow for interactions, in my case, a government agency and industry and a group of industry partners that allow for interactions between the 2. And what I learned is if you build it in that way, 1, you can kind of control your risk as you build it. 2, you can automate business processes on top of your blockchain, right? You want to have a mechanism for automating business processes on top of your blockchain, and then extend your business network in a risk control way, and you can have the biggest impact. So I'll take you a little bit through this, and then I'm going to talk to a couple slides, and then I'll be done, and I'll open it up for questions. But basically what we did, it took 13 weeks from identifying the funds to actually fully building out a functional pilot. 13 weeks in the federal government, okay? We spent a very modest sum of money. If I told you, you wouldn't believe me, so I won't even say it, but we spent a very modest sum of money. And when we ran the competition, we actually competed it where the industry partner competed on a 2-page set of parameters. We had requirements. I wasn't requiring that you take and develop oracles. I wasn't even requiring that you use blockchain. All I was saying to industry is, this is my business process. I collect this information from you. I do financial analysis. I develop negotiation objectives with the companies that we do business with, award contracts. I want you to take that business process, which you've all gone through, and I want you to automate it, and I want you to use a combination of the following technologies: automation, learning, artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, and blockchain. The value in blockchain for me was that I could redesign my business process on Hyperledger and have an immutable record of any interactions that I had between myself and another entity on that Hyperledger platform. And because I had an immutable record of data that was submitted to me by an industry partner that I wanted to interface with, I could actually take steps like financial analysis and I could automate them, leveraging automated machine learning, leveraging robotic processing automation. I minimized the risk by focusing in on a specific space. So what was the outcome of it, guys? Well, we removed the need for 22 different IT systems. If we went to full production, we would no longer have the need for 22 different IT systems. We created one simple interface to collect all of the information from our business partner that we were engaging with. And we took our business process time down from 110 days to less than 10 days. You guys go to the first slide. I'll give you a visual of this that I hope somewhat relates to the healthcare space. So operating at the data layer, guys, you were able to actually take a business process, like I said, that existed on 22 different business systems, and you're actually able to roll it into cloud environment. So as we developed, we used Hyperledger Fabric. As we Hyperledger Fabric in AWS, we actually used Amazon Web Services, we were able to fundamentally roll our business process off our existing aging IT systems and modernize them on a cloud-based delivery platform. We were able to center all activity around patient, and this is not something that I'm recommending you at HHS. This is not a business opportunity, guys. I'm just using this slide to kind of paint a picture for all of you, to make it a reality for all of you. But you can actually take and center all your data. If you're operating at the data layer, you can center all activity around your patient. So when a patient comes in, they actually come in with all their medical information, and then you can leverage microservices off your data layer, which is what I did when I did my blockchain. And you can leverage microservices to engage clinical trials and source information as it relates to that patient, because you're operating at the data layer. You're using microservice directly off of Hyperledger. Maybe you're leveraging automated machine learning. Maybe you're leveraging robotic processing automation. Maybe you're leveraging artificial intelligence. But you're interfacing with, you're taking data and clinical trial data and you're doing an analysis. Maybe you're taking patient information and what's afflicting them, and you're bouncing it off of a network of doctors who can, actually have expertise in this specific space and are located in a manner that this patient could readily access. Operating at the data layer gets you out of the business of building these ginormous bolt-on systems that you have to click through and use drop-down menus, and it gives you into the business of building microservices, constructing microservices for multiple parties that need to access that data and need to run some form of analysis on it. And the great thing about microservices is when you take down a microservice, it doesn't crash your entire system. Your system can still function, right? You have a system that is redundant and is built on a distributed network of data. That distributed network of data is reinforced the more the business network grows, right? So it's a fundamental shift in how you actually do business. But one of the things that I'm trying to point out to you is that redesign the entire functioning, the entire way that drug traceability is done in a private sector company would be a very difficult task. But picking one business process at a hospital and saying, if we buy prescription drugs, you must actually input that information, the drug manufacturer, onto our blockchain, say it's Hyperledger Fabric, and every single distributor or reseller that you do business with must have a node on that blockchain. Well, created complete traceability between me and the manufacturer as a hospital that's actually purchasing that drug, and I can extend that business network to activities that may need to capture in the business network. It's scalable. It's a risk-controlled way to scale. So next slide. And I don't want to spend too much time because I know there's probably a ton of questions. So some things that I learned from when I did my blockchain, the three key things that came out of it. One, look, when you're operating on the data layer, you know, if you're talking about Bitcoin, it's all about trust, right? I'm not talking about Bitcoin. I'm talking about leveraging blockchain. I'm talking about automating a business process that is an application that I am interested in. Reduces level of effort. You can better focus time of your workforce. Instead of my workforce doing full financial analysis over a 30-day period, I was able to lower that time to a matter of seconds, 1 or 2 seconds, and they could focus on other things. So you're actually optimizing your system. And the other thing that you're doing in order to ensure that the blockchain operates flexibly, all of the data that I was taking in on Hyperledger, guys, anything that I needed for automation, I was running automation directly off Hyperledger via microservices. Anything that I didn't need to automate on top of, I was actually dropping off chain into MongoDB, and it mirrored the chain itself, but it kept my blockchain layer extremely flexible and allowed it to move super fast. And it kept all the heavy data, you know, videos, anything that's like a picture, off in MongoDB, off chain, so that I had full flexibility and I could scale, so I could run automation that I needed. The thing is, I like to make it super interoperable. You know, we have connectivity across multiple platforms. If you are going to do this in the health space, not everybody that you interact with is going to move off their platforms. So I built my blockchain layer, even though I didn't need those existing 22 systems in full-blown production. I could do API interface with those systems to actually share data with them, so that fully interoperable with the existing data set. But the other thing I'll talk about, and I always say in terms of interoperability, is you got to redesign the web interface. You have to redesign the web interface, or nobody is actually going to understand what you're doing. You know, the technology folks that develop this can get all excited about how to create an Oracle, and I'm not talking about the company. They can get excited about doing that, but you actually have to sell it to an executive. You actually have to sell it to a manager. You're actually going to have to sell it to an operations person that's not going to understand hashing, that's not understand the cryptography. And so designing the user interface and showing them, like, hey, you used to have to log into 20 systems, and now you just put it in once. And actually showing them the automation in motion live, and then tell them you no longer have to click through the system. That's the way I actually sell it to them. The last piece is you got to make it flexible. Microservices gives you flexibility to do controlled measured implementation. I talked about 2 nodes. I talked about taking and creating a relationship between 2 nodes and creating interoperability between those 2 nodes, being able to suck up data from disparate systems. And I talked about the flexibility of building microservices directly off the data layer, actually execute that business process. That sounds small, but functionally, once I prove that that business process works, now I can extend at my data layer and say, oh, well, now we only have the financial analysis person, the company that we're doing business with, the government professional that's evaluating the company. They're the only 3 nodes that have access. Maybe provide another access level for companies that want to order off my platform, right? In the care space, you may start with just, say, a patient data and access to doctors. Maybe at some point, you want to add the ability via microservice to have access to clinical trial data. I don't know, but it gives you a controlled way for implementation. So it's a scalable solution if you do it right. If you're dropping things off chain into Mongo, it becomes extremely scalable. If you don't drop things off chain into something like Mongo, you're going to have trouble with all of the platforms that exist, whether they're public or private, and we use private. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I said this a bunch of times throughout. I'll just kind of hit home on them again, and I hope this is valuable for all of you. When you're scaling a blockchain throughout an enterprise, focus on the use case and the business process. You're reimagining your business process. You're no longer confined to the business process that requires you to interface with multiple systems. You actually reimagine that business process because you can suck data off of any of the existing databases that you have. You can create a new user interface really inexpensively to collect all of that data at the point of attack. So don't redesign on the basis of the process that exists. Why not an optimal process that you wish you could operate at and have that actual capability? Blockchain is a foundational layer. You know, people talk about blockchain as it's going to transform the world. I fully believe that. Anybody that knows me will tell you that. But blockchain is going to change the world because it's in my belief, because it is a foundational layer that allows you to leverage tools in the form of microservices, automated machine learning, artificial intelligence, and autonomous systems. Take the third party out of the remittance process. That's a huge value add. I mean, that cuts 30% of bank transfer costs, right? If you're able to take the third party out. I believe it will allow you to do that. To have full visibility in your supply chain. And actually have full visibility into all your interactions within your supply chain. So imagine if you were managing a large supply chain and you built an PI with a DLT wrap. On one end, you have a group of folks that are actually buying products. Who knows what they're buying, right? Let's just say office supplies. And on the other end, you have a group of folks selling those products. With the DLT view, it gives you full visibility into all of the sales prices from the group of sellers. It gives you a record of everything that was purchased from those individuals, right? The guy sets the business rules of what data you want to receive from them and how often they're actually doing business with you. And it forces them to integrate based on your business rules. And backside, the ordering activities, now you have full visibility into the dollars they're spending, how often they're ordering, and what exactly they're ordering. So you control the rules and have full visibility, leveraging blockchain, leveraging DLT technology. That enhances user experience. You're no longer building walled bureaucratic processes to make sure that people follow through the maze to control your risk. You're controlling your risk on business rules and the ability to govern because you have full visibility into your network, right? Leveraging microservices allows you to have scalability. You have controlled scalability. I've walked through like 4 different examples. I hope it isn't too confusing, but I was just trying to give you the flavor. And I've never done a webinar before like this, right? You know, with Agile and DevOps, guys, you have to keep it simple, keep it open. And like 5 times throughout this presentation, but got to leverage automation, got to leverage artificial intelligence, got to leverage machine learning. We did this, we did it in 13 weeks. We spent less than $200,000 to fully implement it. 30 weeks in a government setting, from identification of funds into full-blown pilot where we could actually demonstrate capability. We did it with a small business. The small business's name was United Solutions. They partnered with a company called Sapient. And we redesigned all the user interfaces in a 13-week period. We targeted business process, controlled the scaling it out in a controlled manner, a business process that we fully controlled and we could reimagine, and which microservices so that we could be super flexible in how we scaled it out. So I really appreciate the time. I hope that wasn't all over the place and added a little bit of value. And I guess when it's time for questions, I'm happy to answer any should they come up.
Formally introduce you. I apologize. You were so ready to go. So it's just Ms. Jose Arita. I hope it's the Associate Deputy Assistant Secretary for Acquisitions, Assistant Secretary for Financial Resources, ASFR, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And Sean, have you been unmuted so we can hear you? We're now going to go to Chosen. Acting Associate Director, Oncology, Regulatory Science, and Informatics, Oncology Center of Excellence at FDA. Thanks so much. Your turn.
And sorry, nobody could hear me last time. Seems like I was on mute. And it's great to be here. So, Jennifer, I'd like to control my slides. Are you giving over control to me?
So just go ahead and see if you can advance your slides.
Okay. Let's work with me.
It is, but there you go.
There we go. Okay. Animation that is not coming up correctly. Is it possible to give me control so I could run the PowerPoint on my laptop?
Yeah. So I got an email and said that if you want to use the animation, you'd have to open the file up on your computer. What you can do is go up to the screen and say share my screen and open the slides from there. Unfortunately, WebEx doesn't support animation in slides.
Okay. Well, I can do it without that in the interest of time, and I can just advance the slides, and we don't need to take advantage of the animation, but I can just describe what the intent of the animations were. So I'm going to speak about blockchain as a decentralized framework for data sharing, and I'm going to preface this. In fact, most of my talk is about why data sharing is critical to the FDA. And as you know, the FDA regulates about a quarter of the economy. The way we do that is through analyzing data and reflecting that in either the policy decisions that are constructed and communicated by the agency, or through the regulatory approval pathway. So on this slide, if we look at the data universe that the FDA presides over, and this slide is highlighting one component of that data universe, which is a major part of what we do, regulation of drugs and biologics. So look at the data universe. It has been an expansion of the big data universe in drug development. And as many of you know, big data has 4 different axes. It's not just about the size of data. For example, if you have a data repository with terabytes of data, that is not necessarily a big data repository. It's just a repository that happens to be 10 terabytes. There are 3 other axes that, from a computational perspective, define what big data is. And as we all know, big has been expanding along all 4 axes. And let's look at where we are today. And this is a generalization when it comes to making regulatory decisions in drug development, in approved drugs and biologics, but also how the drug development community as a whole is generating and analyzing biomedical data. So if we look at the variety of data that the FDA is currently reviewing and receiving, and that's on the variety axis on the slide. For the most part, we're looking at clinical trial data that, in terms of the veracity of the data, meaning uncertainties about data quality and structure, these are mostly structured data sets, data coming from clinical trials to us. And in terms of volume, these data sets are no more than a few gigabytes. Even the largest randomized clinical trial, when the data is submitted to the FDA, is typically a few gigabytes in size. In terms of data velocity, which is a computational concept that speaks to the frequency at which the data is analyzed and generated, we're getting the data intermittently. Essentially, when a company, a sponsor of a clinical study, registrational study in support of a application, a drug or a biologic or a device, they send us a new drug application and a new biologic licensing application, and along with that comes the data that we analyze to make our regulatory decisions. So in terms of data velocity, it's intermittent. How you look at the of this expanding universe of big data, these are the opportunities that we would like to leverage. And so what does that mean? We would like to go beyond just clinical trial, additional clinical trial data for our regulatory decisions. You may have heard a lot about electronic health record data or real-world data that is playing a greater role in informing regulatory decisions, and we're working on frameworks that can help us better leverage electronic health record data. However, beyond EHR data, there are multiple other opportunities that we'd like to leverage, including sensors and wearables to capture patients' experience, and also data from the Internet of Things to capture environmental exposure data, for example, factors that may influence the patient's experience. Take a drug or a product that we're responsible for regulating. And also the multi-omic milieu, which includes genomic data, but also data from proteomic pipelines and the microbiome. Those are the different variety of data sets that we would like to leverage in making our regulatory decisions. When we do that, the veracity of the data, and at that edge, as we call it, of the expanding universe of big data, the veracity is undefined, and the volume, petabytes and zettabytes and more. If we do this right, we can have a real-time understanding of patient's experience, the individual's experience, taking drugs or using devices that we're responsible for regulating. In terms of data velocity, this holistic edge of the expanding universe of big data would allow us to have a more real-time understanding of the patient's experience. So real sharing and blockchain is an effort to go from a reductionist approach, an intermittent reductionist approach to making regulatory decisions and generating data in the biomedical enterprise in general to a more holistic approach that incorporates data points from a variety of different intrinsic and extrinsic variables that influence the patient's experience and response to therapies. And to recognize that no single organization or entity is capable of producing all that data, all the data is required to have this holistic view. We should have access to a variety of different data sets to acquire data and analyze it in a decentralized fashion. And that's why blockchain has a lot of promise in terms of to that holistic edge of the patient's experience. So I'm the Director of Information Exchange and Data Transformation, which is developing a holistic approach, the FDA, primarily focusing on oncology, regulatory science, and this is an incubator where we, through public-private collaborations, will do solutions in data science and agile health information technology development. So there are different components to what we do. One is, as many of you know, the FDA has a lot of trial data, actually over the years, as we've approved drugs and biologics and devices. We have accumulated a large volume of clinical trial data. So one thing that we started to do when we informed was to aggregate this data and to start looking across these data sets for meta-analyses and predictive analytics. And we've published a lot of this work in academic journals, and there are some analyses, exercises that are being used to inform internal decisions. And the other component of Inform is to really start to build organizational and technical capacity to start to leverage novel pipelines of data, including real-world data from electronic health records, but also census and IoT, also the multi-omic milieu that's very important in understanding the individual patient variability and the experience of the individual patient. So, and what we do is we call it algorithmic analytics, and that includes meta-analyses based on standard statistical methods, but also more advanced methods based on AI and machine learning. And our input is data, so we're very data hungry, and that's why we embarked on a blockchain effort. And the outputs are algorithms. Obviously, we publish, and some of the work we do inform guidance development. However, the outputs are algorithms that now we're calling drug development tools. And the concept of a drug development tool is very interesting, and it's really allowing us to go in very new and exciting areas. And this was actually enacted into law after the 21st Century Cures Act was signed back in November of 2016, where the FDA, Congress directed the FDA to design and develop drug development tools. And back in the old days, we used to call those call it biomarker. Where Congress realized that in today's data-driven world, biomarker just captures one physiological concept usually, and we need to go beyond that. So now a drug development tool in the 21st Century Cures Act is defined as a biomarker, a clinical outcome assessment, any other method, material measure that the Secretary determines a drug development and regulatory review for the purposes of the section this was mentioned in, which is to streamline drug development programs and standardize clinical evidence generation. So algorithms are part of the definition of a drug development tools, and these can be AI algorithms, predict algorithms, and so forth. So we're building a toolbox, a drug development toolbox that, of course, includes biomarkers, something that the FDA has been very much involved with over the years, but also expanded that to include algorithms and predictive formulas that can be embedded into drug development programs in order to streamline and to find novel ways of understanding the patient's experience. So these are all data-hungry efforts, and we have been acquiring our data, as I mentioned earlier, through a variety of different means, programs over the years at the FDA, including the Sentinel program, started to query clinical data. And currently through Informed, we have electronic health record data through collaborations and public-private partners. And we're assessing the utility of using advanced analytics on these data sets. And we have a couple of biosensor projects, including a clinical trial that we actually are launching at the National Cancer Institute, the Intramural program, where we are utilizing sensors to understand the patient's experience as part of the clinical trial at the National Cancer Institute. So that data and the product in most of those cases are algorithms and drug development tools that we'd like to share with the community as a foundation that can be built upon to streamline clinical development program and help us better understand the patient's experience. So we embarked on a blockchain effort to really enable data liquidity, which would be not only to the benefit of the FDA, but all the stakeholders in the drug development community. So we're doing this in collaboration with Watson Health, and this has nothing to do with AI. And as many of you may know, IM has been part of the Hyperledger Foundation, and that open source Hyperledger framework is what we're using, and we've built a prototype that we use to test transmission of data. And we're hoping that as this experience fully develops, it can be a foundation for everyone else to learn from, and this is, I think, a collective learning experience for everyone. And here is really to enable an ecosystem, which one of the we use is, when DARPA was working on Internet, it became the Internet. So the efforts, our blockchain effort and similar efforts, we're hoping that they will all converge into a distributed system, a very decentralized distributed system that enable exchange of health data at scale. I think we've heard about the benefits of blockchain today, and there are a lot of provenance and privacy and security. There are three components that are very interesting to us when it comes to blockchain as a truly decentralized framework. There are a lot of different models, private blockchains and smart contracts, but to really enable a truly decentralized system, there are three components that are of special interest to us. One is that this a decentralized blockchain framework would be owner mediated, meaning anyone who has the legal owner of that data can deposit the data into the framework, and more that has become the patient individual, and the individuals are gaining ownership of their data. But also the institutions and providers and networks that do have data that they want to contribute to a decentralized blockchain framework. And a truly decentralized framework is scalable, and it's also transparent. And these three components are of special interest to us in starting to move closer to the holistic edge of big data to really enable us to understand the individual, the patient's experience in a more comprehensive, complete fashion. Looking forward to participating in the discussion.
Thank you. We are beginning to queue up some questions, and please, the audience, please continue to add. And before we start that, John and Jose, do you have questions for each other that you'd like to ask? Okay.
Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
I had muted. Yeah, Sean, a very interesting presentation, and thank you very much for sharing. I just wonder, where do you see, if you had to if you were allowed to do an implementation, where do you see the low-hanging fruit? Where do you see the kind of point of entry to try it first?
That's a great question, and we've been thinking about appropriate use cases. I think there are a lot of different scenarios, and one would be to develop a mechanism for the FDA to receive genomic data, and specifically next-generation sequencing data. That's one of the use cases that we've been thinking about. Currently, there is no mechanism to do that. In some cases, if application does involve next-generation sequencing data, we ask for an extrapolation and a distillation of the data as transport file, or in a couple of cases, actually, they FedExed us hard drives. So I think that would be one of those low-hanging fruits, that could have value. And another use case, and that really truly requires a decentralized and horizontal framework that presents an active ecosystem of participants. And if those conditions are met, the individual patient-generated data would be of very keen interest, and these are data that are being created, wearables and sensors and mobile applications, such as are really under the control of the individual and the individual patient to have a way of having that data to understand the patient's experience, because after the drug or a biologic or a device approved, there's a post-market phase where we have to follow the performance of these drugs and how essentially patients and individuals are doing in terms of the focus at that stage is mostly on safety on drugs that have been approved and vetted by the FDA. So it's a cycle that is essentially never ending, and we have to, as part of that post-marketing digital pharmacovigilance phase, it would be highly valuable to have access to patient-generated data.
So it's cool, really interesting things to me, Sean, that you said, and I've been kind of trying to wrap my arms around this. It sounds like you kind of identified one place where you don't have a mechanism, and I think for everybody on the phone that's thinking blockchain, if there's a spot where you don't have a clean mechanism for collecting data and there's not existing systems in place, you really have a green field. If you go into it not thinking about blockchain as the solution, but thinking about blockchain as the enabler of the solution, and remembering that creating that interface to kind of vacuum in the data from multiple parties, and then figuring out what you want to do with that data as a first step to test it is key. So I think the first example you gave a great example of that. On the second one, in the IoT space, I think there is a ton of potential there. And the question comes down to security, but I do think that there is a way to actually kind of mask the data and as it transverses the chain itself. So you can still run analysis, but you can use masking technology to create some safety. And so, for those of you on the phone that are kind of thinking about these things, Sean, two awesome examples, and I'm excited just to hear you say that.
Debbie, I'm really curious about, actually to both of you, when you're about data, there is raw data that you're actually getting, but I got a sense from Sean's presentation that what is actually on the blockchain is it shared analysis derived from that data and algorithms, or what is actually being, for both instances, what type of information is actually being put on the blockchain itself?
So just this is Jose. From my perspective, I want raw data, and I want to run microservices off of the raw data, and I may be pulling from different data sets, right? I may have patient data that I may be analyzing as it compares to clinical records and as it relates to doctors and their expertise. So I want raw data chain, and I want to use microservices to connect different data sets and do analysis. I mean, that's the way that I view it from the implementation that I did. From perspective, if there's already something that's kind of pre-analyzed and fact, then I will accept it and I will use it as such, as fact. But I want to create a mechanism to leverage microservices to drive learning across dynamic data sets. And when I mean dynamic, I mean that represent different activities, different people.
So I completely agree. I couldn't have said it better. We're looking at it in a similar way, and raw data is the ultimate goal. And I think there are a lot of things and novel opportunities for a variety of different microservices to extract maximal value from the raw data. So there would be an almost unlimited number of opportunities for innovation, leveraging the raw data that exists on blockchain. And I think that also speaks to the idea of really starting to look at health data, not an academic construct, which is what we've been doing for the most part, but as a utility, as a core utility for the common good, that essentially like electricity really flows to power ideas. And I think that's a different way of looking and thinking about health data. But I think in a lot of ways, we really want to make health data functional versus only academic. And that would be one way to liberate data and leverage opportunities that exist in connecting different sets and have a more holistic view on the ecosystem.
And I agree with you, Sean, and Debbie, I just want to take it a step further. If you think about you just being a consumer and going shopping, right now data is aggregated, and it says, Sean, we saw that you bought dog food. You may be interested in buying. People that bought dog food also bought this, right? So it's aggregated by an external entity that kind of pushes information to you. What we're talking about as it relates to health, or as it relates to consumer marketplace, is the disaggregation of data centered around the individual, so that the individual has the ability to query different data sets and learn more on the basis of information that they want shared with them. And that's a completely different model. It's user first. It's inner outward model. That's very empowering, and it decentralizes the activity, which has a ton of innovation, right?
So go ahead and look at it for some of the audience questions. We're going to paraphrase So I'm going to paraphrase to his first. This is about your microservices bus, and they're wondering how does transactions on the blockchain trigger the running of an autonomous service? And curious whether this is open source and what type of blockchain did you use?
Yeah, so we used a private blockchain. We used Hyperledger Fabric. I am, when you think about the model that I described, I'm controlling the business rules. I know who the other entity is in my network, so it's very much akin to the way you'd manage your supply chain. You know who you're doing business with now, right? So I'm not using it on the basis of trust. The blockchain itself, I am using as a utility, to steal a word from Sean, I'm using it as a utility to ensure that I have the raw data, and I am building microservices off of the blockchains. So actually, setting up smart contracts essentially, and if-then statements to drive certain actions to occur directly off the blockchain. I did not use. We had envisioned using autonomous systems in our implementation. We only automated machine learning and robotic processing automation. So we actually didn't proof the autonomous systems, other than the if-then statements actually trigger an interaction between multiple data and an analysis. But we're using like self-driving vehicles, or we weren't using like what you'd think of as an autonomous system. And we didn't get to that point yet because HHS, at HHS now, I left the place that we implemented this.
So I have a question for Sean, and he was, the question is, where can researchers find these algorithms that are in development?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question, and this is we have published something we're doing, and these are meta-analyses, and obviously the reviewed vehicle is probably not the best mechanism to disseminate algorithms. So we're thinking about developing a drug development toolbox where these algorithms would be accessible to everyone. That's something that we're working on right now. And the idea is to really do foundational work that we can do given our vantage point. I think the FDA has a very unique vantage point since we're at the convergence point of a lot of data. And we are essentially leveraging, taking advantage of that vantage point to projects and initiatives, and in cases where the outcome is algorithm, we are right now at the stage of doing a mechanism to disseminate and make those algorithms available to everyone. But currently, the step we can do is to publish results of our analyses in peer-reviewed journals. However, we're actively looking at expanding on that, and we start to look at the algorithm as the actual product rather than just a publication, which it turns out is becoming harder and harder to communicate a lot of the findings in just a peer-reviewed journal. And the peer-reviewed journal in some cases would be essentially a user manual to the algorithm, how it was developed, and in cases that it was prospectively validated, what were the results.
Thank you, Sean, Jose. These are really interesting presentations. This is Victoria. I just wanted to go back quickly. You had talked about putting raw data onto the blockchain. I'm sure you're very aware of everybody's privacy concerns about doing something like that. So even if you de-identify raw data, there can be ways of putting an identity to that. How do you deal with that issue? And particularly when thinking about possibly in 10 years, quantum computers even breaking decryption or bringing encryption.
Yeah, so I won't go out 10 years and solve the encryption problem. I'll look a little bit more in front of me. I'm not even going to tackle the 10 years. But what I say is, if you look at most major IT systems right now, right? If you look at architecture, what they look at, they tend to be a system in the middle, which is kind of system of truth. And it almost looks like a bicycle wheel, and a bit of smaller systems that go outwardly that access your system of truth in some form or fashion, whether it's an accounting system, whether it's a financial management system, that's a center, whether it's a health record system that's in the center. That's typically the structure of IT. So IT systems now. So if anything actually accessed in that centralized system, it can be corrupted and it can be changed, and then privacy can go out the door. So with blockchain, what you have is you have the ability, and remember kind of what I said, you have the ability to take data onto Hyperledger, distributed amongst all of the nodes that are accessing it. You have the ability to create levels of control so that each individual node has its own view. As a government entity, I'm going to control the view that you have, right? So that each individual node has its own view. I'm not going to share Debbie's information with Zay. And then I can take any of the data I would consider that is considered private, and I can completely drop it off the chain and to a database that's actually off chain. So that I'm using, and I'm just putting a tag on Hyperledger that flags the fact on my blockchain layer that flags the fact that that data exists, but I'm actually housing it off chain with all the security protocols that exist for a normal data set that you have. So it's actually increased privacy and increased security because all of the nodes have to balance. So if there's any change, if there's anything that's moved, it's going to flag on every node, and essentially you can have it stop that activity from taking place. You can program that in as a microservice, right? That's your immutable record. And then you're dropping it off the chain with a marker that's on chain, so off of the blockchain with a marker that exists on the blockchain that actually references where it is, but ensured it's not actually directly on chain and accessible. So it actually adds an added layer of privacy, and that's my perspective on it.
Questions for Sean, and is what's your view of FDA possibly receiving pseudonymized or anonymized aggregated real-world evidence data with agency value that? And then do you see informed expanding open FDA role in industry to help?
So for the first question, yeah, absolutely. And we've built electronic health record data, and we have several demonstration projects where we are looking at your data and in the context of research, where there has been occasions where real-world data has been used to support approval decisions. We've crossed that threshold. I think one of the things that we're very interested in is to new opportunities for leveraging real-world data, not just the way that most of the efforts are designed current, which is retrospective examination of these data sets, but prospectively, meaning we currently have the technical capabilities to be able to track data from the point of routine care. Don't necessarily have to design a clinical trial, a traditional clinical trial, for every question that we want to answer. So multiple opportunities where we can, in fact, prospectively collect data from the point of routine care. And as we have smart IT solutions at the point of routine care, in those circumstances, we could, in fact, do randomization, extract data from electronic health records and sensors. And there are mathematical reasons why we're interested in that. If you, for example, look at oncology clinical trials, fortunately, only about 3 to 5% of adult oncology patients in the United States have the opportunity to participate in a clinical study. The male patients, for a variety of different reasons, are not eligible because of the strict eligibility criteria that we typically see in traditional clinical trials. Or there are other barriers. For example, distance and interpretation has been a major barrier. And there's also another barrier that's called financial toxicity, that for a patient who may live 100 miles away from the closest clinical trial center, for a patient with advanced cancer, it's an opposition to leave their family and way to participate in a clinical trial even after they're eligible. So all of those factors have really led to a very low participation in traditional clinical trials in adult oncology and in other systems as well. So by building abilities to extract data from the point of care, real-world data, we can increase what we call the validity of clinical evidence, meaning our ability to individualize treatments out of care. Because if we're only training the experience of 3% of the population, 7%, extrapolating that to the other 97% may in some cases be problematic. And that's where leveraging sensor, real-world data, electronic health record data prospectively at the point of routine care would be very, very useful and helpful. And that is my the long way of answering the first question. Can you please remind me what the second question was?
Need to go back. It has opened the FDA.
Oh, yes. We are connected dots with all existing efforts, including Open FDA, and I think in cases product of if it's an algorithm, for example, would be what Open FDA has pioneered. Our and drug development tools should be available broadly to as many as possible. So absolutely, that's something that we are about in connecting the dots internally.
A couple, I'd say some general concerns about the principle of medical data as a utility. But another question is, putting raw data on the blockchain, how do you handle the current scalability issues with block size and transaction speeds?
Yeah, so what we were able to do is have to separate out what a blockchain is and what a private blockchain is. When you think about scalability issues, if you just Google search blockchain and you read about the scalability issues, it's very much related to the public ledger. And what we actually used a private blockchain, and we only used Hyperledger for the automation and for the data that we wanted to run automation on. In fact, when automation for doing whatever analysis was complete, we dropped everything off of the shelf and put it in Mongo. So it became very scalable. It didn't run into any of the scalability issues that you'd normally flag with a public blockchain. So it really depends on where you're implementing it and use case is. Scalability issues are clear and present, and there are also security issues and major privacy issues. You use a public chain, but when you private chain, and if you architect it in the manner that I described, scalability not so much an issue, and kind of the total transactions that occur. Issue that we foresaw. Now we hadn't implemented it across our entire network of 5,000 suppliers yet, but we actually foresee an issue in that space. And the biggest issue for us, just to being frank with everybody, was the change management issue. No longer need 90% of the existing IT support that facilitated my business process before. I think fundamentally the change that's going to drive through the entity or the organization that I'm working in. That was actually our biggest issue.
As I said, implementation is key, and there are a variety of different ways of implementing blockchain to facilitate exchange. And for example, one of the things we're doing to ensure privacy and protect the data, the raw data itself won't go on the chain. It's the permissions and the encryption, the keys that are required to unlock the data that is in the hyperledger fabric on the chain, if you will. So a variety of different ways of implementing blockchain to increase security and to protect patient privacy.
So would it be that there is the potential to use blockchain like microservices to process massive amount of raw data? And even though you're talking two different use cases, it's something similar that both of you have experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, go ahead, John.
No, just without definitely answer. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Okay.
Just really, just to be clear, though, you're running microservices off-chain, and so we say blockchain-like microservices. Blockchain is facilitating a data layer that actually allows you to build microservices that are business activities, right? You're taking kind of two technologies and you're leveraging the strengths of each of them to deliver an outcome. So I know that's a little bit nitpicky, but it's very important from an execution perspective.
It was brought up that quantum computing, for example, can be a threat to data security and encryption, but we can also look at it as an opportunity because there are a lot of privacy preserving protocols that currently are running into computational challenges for implementation, and homomorphic encryption and things of that nature, that with quantum computing and a better computational infrastructure can be applied. So I think as we have better means and their computational capabilities, we'll have better encryption and capabilities as well.
Yeah, he's 100% agree. And just I didn't want to go there with with quantum computing, but quantum computing breaking encryption, it's one thing, but actually structuring the delivery of services in a manner where even if encryption is broken, that where nodes on the chain itself actually have to agree to any change or removal of data, sets a business rule that actually kind of slows down quantum computing's ability to actually access your data set. So they may have visibility into it, but there's no ability to export or change, right? And you couldn't do that with a singular database right now, but with distributed ledger, within a distributed ledger environment, you can actually build that safeguard in.
I guess one more comment or question. A major underlying blockchain, both of you have alluded to other services, standards, and protocols that will also are evolving or will be necessary for this environment. And do you have any thoughts of other emerging technologies, standard protocols that we should be keeping our eye on to support blockchain implementations going forward?
I'm interested in the four: automated machine learning, artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, blockchain architected and delivered in a manner that drives an outcome. Obviously, quantum computing is something to pay attention to. I do believe that the creation of a 5G network and actually building a DLT within a 5G network with significant opportunities to redesign entire industries leveraging that mobile network and leveraging the DLT as a basis to redesign business process. But that's a great question. Don't know what to say.
So that was on a to-do list of mine, is to do like an infographic of all the different areas that may touch, because truly blockchain seems to be underlying technology that may support other things going in the future. Well, I thank you very much for joining and really making the top of the hour of this. We've been very grateful for you to join in your busy schedules, and thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. We have 200 and some participants still hanging on to the end. It's a great afternoon.
I just want to remind everybody that today's webinar has been recorded, and the link to access the recording will be posted on the event webpage. An email will be sent to notify you when it's been posted. And, echoing Debbie, thank you so much, Jose and Sean. Because the flu took out your two other panelists, you had to carry this on your own, and you did a fabulous job. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now,